We are back on the early wedge, and it's time to talk some U.S. Open here on a Sunday. Well, we're just 4 days away from Oakmont. We got Jason Sobel. We've got Mike McClure. Jason, I see you're wearing the 2017 U.S. Open shirt, so I'm going to start with you. I mean, I think at this point, I know it's still early, but at this point, everybody knows what Oakmont has to offer, and it doesn't have much to offer in terms of low scores, right? We're going to see narrow fairways. We're going to see extremely thick rough. We're going to see large but probably very fast greens. It's going to be a very tough course. What are you looking for from the course, and what are you looking for in a golfer at Oakmont?
So first of all, Sia, the shirt was just a coincidence. I didn't even think about it until you said it. Secondly, look, I love Oakmont, one of my favorite golf courses in the world. I've covered 2 other U.S. Opens there, and I'll be there starting tomorrow, and I can't wait to get out there. This is the quintessential. You've got to keep it in the fairway, and you can't go in the rough. The problem is, like you said, the fairways are going to be very narrow, and you're going to hit it in the rough at times. So if you hit it in the rough, you've got to be a big, brawny player to be able to muscle them out of the rough. As we've seen in the last decade at U.S. Opens, it's no longer Jim Furyk and Lee Janzen and Corey Pavin, short hitters who win the U.S. Open like they used to. You hit fairways and greens and go win yourself, par your way to a U.S. Open. Now it's Bryson DeChambeau, it's Jon Rahm, it's Dustin Johnson, it's Gary Woodland. It's guys who can hit it a long way because essentially the theory is everybody's going to hit the ball in the rough at some point, and you want guys that can extricate themselves from the rough and still save par. So I'm looking along the same lines. Look, the last 6 major championships have been won by a combination of Scottie Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, Xander Schauffele, and Jon Rahm. I don't see that changing anytime. Not Jon Rahm, Rory, of course. But Rahm is one of the names that I would put up there for this week as well. And I have a hard time looking outside that very, very top tier for my outrights. And so this is going to be a week where I focus on finishing position plays and look at guys to get into the top 10 and top 20, because I think that's where there's some value in the market.
Yeah, certainly that market, I think, is something we're going to talk about on the betting show Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and perhaps a little bit on the DFS show on Monday at 7 o'clock, Mike. But, you know, I agree with Jason's assessment, but I also think that just trying to go for more accurate guys, I'm not saying more like accuracy over distance. I'm not suggesting that, but I do think there's going to be plenty of holes where the accurate guys are just in such a better position because of not being in what's going to be likely 5-inch rough just right off the bat on Thursday. So what are your thoughts? Is it kind of like, I don't want to say bomb and gouge, I don't want to reduce it to that, but are you really looking for like super distance here, or like how much of that accuracy are you combining in? Because I think the off the tee play, whichever side you're on, I think the off the tee play is going to be paramount here.
Yeah, I mean, the off the tee play is definitely going to matter. Still going to favor distance. I'm certainly that's going to be a tiebreaker. There's no doubt. Club head speed, which again, very much correlated to driving distance, and just strokes gained total, tee to green play. I'm looking at the top players in the world, right? Guys that play well in difficult tests of golf. As Jason mentioned, it's going to be Scottie Scheffler and Bryson DeChambeau at the top. You can throw Rory in there if you want. But I personally, in this setup, in this situation, everything coming in, I think it's hard to have anyone other than Scottie and Bryson be 1 and 2. I also think we saw it a little bit this week. I know you can say it was a little bit of a tune-up for Rory and just kind of whatever. I think Rory falls off the rest of the season after completing everything that he's completed. I just unfortunately think that's where it's headed, and that's the way I'm going to play it. So yeah, for me, it'll be Scottie and Bryson, a very clear 1 and 2. Other guys that can mix in, if you're ready for names, I can't quit Patrick Cantlay. I'll have a little bit of Cantlay. Other guys, Tyrrell Hatton's popping a little bit for me, which is always an experience in itself. And then Shane Lowry again.
Yeah. Okay. So Shane Lowry was a name I was going to bring up. So first of all, can we see, Josh, when you get a chance, can you put up the odds at BetMGM? Because the comment that Mike McClure just made about Rory McIlroy, I think is starting to be reflected in a lot of the markets. And I do want to see if BetMGM has already flipped the script on having Bryson actually pass Rory McIlroy. And there it is. He has. So Scottie is still standing at plus 275. And now we have Bryson DeChambeau as the second favorite at plus 800. And Rory has drifted all the way. I mean, I remember Rory at some books just a couple of days ago was like plus 850. Now he's
plus 700. Yeah.
Plus 700. Okay. Yeah. Now he's plus 1,100. And then that's followed by John Rahm, who has sort of been in that plus 1,200 range. And then you see a pretty big drop off to Xander at plus, looks like 2,200, and then Colin and Ludwig. And then you get to Joaquim and JT, and then your guy, Mike, Patrick Cantlay. Jason, I look at this board and I think two things. And I think we all kind of think two things. One thing we definitely think, and that's Scotty Scheffler is going to win this tournament. I think that, as the more difficult it gets, the more it favors Scotty Scheffler. Although there are guys that can mix in, and that includes Rory, Bryson, John Rahm, maybe Xander if he's fixed some of his issues. I think there's at least an argument for guys like Colin and Cantlay and Ludwig, and I think that's about it from the pool here, Jason. Who is going to challenge Scotty here? Are there any names?
Look, I like Scotty too, and I think it very well could be one of those weeks where you like Scotty, I like Scotty, everybody likes Scotty, everyone picks him to win, and he doesn't win just because of the nature of betting. When everyone zigs, you've got to zag a little bit. And so if I am getting away from Scotty, the one name that jumps out to me is John Rahm. I think John Rahm got a little taste of what it's like once again at the PGA Championship last month, and he's burning to get back to being in contention again in a major championship, proving some people wrong, whether that's just inside his head or is actually a real thing that people think that he left for live and can't play good golf anymore, which is ridiculous. But I think John Rahm's the guy that I want to chase on this board. I know a lot of people will be on Bryson, a lot of people jumping off Rory, a lot of people will look at the Xander number and just say, I can bet Xander at that number because he's so good at the U.S. Open. But Rahm's really the one that sticks out to me is like, if someone besides Scotty is going to win this golf tournament, that's the guy.
Mike, I am going to be betting the without Scotty market, and BetMGM doesn't have it yet, but some of the major books have the without market. What I noticed 2 days ago when I wrote a short article for CBS Sports and SportsLine, where I, by the way, featured John Rahm, who Jason just talked about, and Shane Lowry, who you just talked about. I featured them both in the without market. One thing I noticed a couple of days ago was that Rahm in the without market was plus 1,100 versus the true odds with him were plus 1,200. So there wasn't much of a gap. Same with Bryson. There was only like a 1 point fall off. Now they've changed it like a little bit more, where Rahm in the without market is plus 900 now. Bryson in without market is plus 650 as opposed to the plus 800 and plus 1,200. Your thoughts on the without market?
I think it could be warranted. Again, I feel great about Scotty. The one that I would like to get is, Rory's going to be included in a lot of those when you look at the secondary ones, which is fine. Again, I don't think Rory's going to contend here, but I do like the idea. If you don't want to back Bryson, catching the without Scotty, Bryson, Rahm, and Rory market, I think that swallows a ton of the true win equity. So that's where I would really, if say you wanted to back someone like Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, Cantlay, some of those guys, even Shane Lowry, removing Scotty, Rahm, Bryson, I think is a huge deal here.
Yeah, in that taking out those big four, Shane Lowry is 25-1 right now over at DK, and in the straight up. Go ahead.
I don't interrupt there, but there's a real chance here that you're talking Scotty, Bryson are 1 and 2. I mean, you're talking about your guy that you're backing could finish third in this tournament and still cash. Yeah. It's not just, you're hoping your guy runners up to Scotty. I feel very strong that at least 2 of Scotty, Bryson, and Rahm are going to finish in the top 3 or 4 of this tournament.
Alex Jones in the chat says, see, I don't like Rahm in the without market because he's the type of guy that doesn't care about coming in second. Yeah, Alex, we saw that last time, but that's because he was so far back, he had to go for it. He was like 3 or 4 strokes back, and he just had to go YOLO. I mean, I think Rahm could be playing from a lead, again, in the without market. And I think there are instances where he's not necessarily going to have to defer to just going YOLO like he had to last time out. Jason, your reaction?
It's also not really a golf course where you can do that. Like I know it's easy for us to sit here on a podcast, go, oh man, he's going to be aggressive today. When you're out there on the golf course at Oakmont, you're like, I don't know, I've got 184 to a tucked pin, and if I miss it a little bit, the ball's going to bounce 30 yards over into some thick rough. Like you can't just like fire at flag sticks there like you could a little bit at Quail Hollow and get yourself into some trouble. So I don't know if that's as much of a factor as we saw last month at the PGA.
All right, Mike, I know you have to go in probably less than 60 seconds. Let me ask you 2 names. If we could reduce it down, maybe in the without market, is it or whatever, either market? Is it Bryson and Lowry? You mentioned Cantlay. What are two names that, whether it's DFS or betting, you're going to be focused upon that are not named Scotty Scheffler?
Yeah, let me pull up the DFS pricing real quick because it is out.
Love that.
Yeah, I like Bryson still for sure. I mean, there's a huge discount. I don't know if you see, is this number right on Scotty? Is he really 14-4?
14-4.
That's
okay.
amazing.
So yeah, I mean, I'm playing Bryson over Scotty when there's 11,000 versus 14-4. So I'm very clearly going to be on Bryson there. And then Shane Lowry's the guy for me. He's only 7,800.
Yeah.
I'll throw Patrick Reed in at 6,900, and that'll basically be a really strong start for me.
I will say, Mike, once again for a major, they're doing sub 6,000 prices, and like there's players in there. It's not just the guys who qualified that you've never heard of. Like they're legit PGA Tour players who can finish in the top 20, even top 10, who are way down that board.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike. I know you have to bounce out for some HQ. We're going to see you on the Monday DFS show on the SportsLine YouTube channel at 7 o'clock. So thanks for being a part of this show. We'll see you certainly next week for we got so much content coming. We've got the network shows, we've got YouTube shows, more content than you can imagine. So make sure you keep it locked in. Jason, as Mike exits, let me ask you a follow-up question about some of the live players. Yeah. We talked about Bryson, and I think, listen, people are going to like Bryson for good reason. We haven't really I guess Mike just brought up Patrick Reed, and I think Patrick Reed is a fine play. Are there any other names that jump out? I mean, we kind of touched on John. Oh, actually, you didn't just touch on John Rahm, right? You kind of like John Rahm here. I do too. Any other live players, and do you want to reflect a little bit more on Rahm's potential here?
I might like at the current number Rahm more than Bryson, quite honestly.
Yeah,
and I like Bryson a lot. Look, I think it's coming from that top tier. We've seen sort of the live guys that are hit and the live guys that are miss. I mean, there's a certain line of demarcation between them right now where you've got the guys that show up for the big ones, and that's certainly Bryson and Rahm, and I think Reed is probably part of that mix. Jury's still out a little bit on Joaquin Niemann, who had his first top 10 in a major just last month. And then there are guys that Cameron Smith that just don't come back. Cameron Smith, who hits it pretty crooked off the tee and hasn't been as good over the last year and a half as he was beforehand. I can't imagine anybody playing him anywhere close to this market. I mean, maybe some people say, well, Dustin Johnson won here 9 years ago, so, he can do it again. No, look, Dustin's clearly checked out. So I think we kind of understand who the live guys are, what they are, who we're looking at for this coming week. Sia, I will also get into I didn't give you any names a little further down the board. I said it's more of a finishing position type of week for me. I know Mike mentioned Cantlay. I think Cantlay and Fleetwood are your prototypical top 10 floor plays that you might not even see them on TV on the weekend. And then all of a sudden you look at the leaderboard on Sunday night and you're like, oh, they finished tied for 8th place. And I never even saw their shots. They were never in contention. They both finished at 3 over par, 6 shots back, and we cashed the top 10 tickets. So that's kind of the week it feels like for me, for each of those guys. Really like Keegan Bradley. A lot of people have talked about that name. I don't know that I'll get on in the outright market just because I think you're wasting your money a little bit, but I really like Maverick McNeely, who's played really good golf on some big boy golf courses, both Torrey and Muirfield Village. He had top 5s this year. I could be convinced on Sepp Straka. I'm waiting for the Sepp Straka roller coaster ride to kind of hit the down cycle a little bit. And it hasn't yet. He's played some great golf this year. So Straka could be a guy that I like. And Harris English keeps playing these big boy golf courses really well also. Yeah. He's played some between Torrey and Quail, being first and second at those two. I think Harris English has some equity as well in these finishing position markets.
I was going to ask you pretty much about all those players. I was actually focused on guys like that, guys that I think are ball strikers that maybe can do the thing where they actually don't get it in a lot of the rough. Obviously everybody's going to find the rough, but if you get like a Colin Morikawa or Sepp Straka or Corey Connors that can just consistently find the fairway, and we know, one thing we know about this course, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, you're not going to see a lot of long irons here, right? I mean, we're going to see a lot of wedges, a lot of shorter irons coming in. So, I mean, I feel like if you're in the fairway and you're just good with your mid to wedge iron game, that you're okay. Your thoughts?
I don't know. It's a great point, Sia. And it depends how players decide to attack this golf course, because we talk about how important it is to be in the fairway. So if you're a long hitter that says, I'm not that straight, I can't put myself in the rough, all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm going to take a 4-iron off the tee, and I'm going to put something in the fairway. Well, now, of course, you're 50 yards further back from where you would have been with a driver. Now you're hitting a mid-iron into the green instead of a wedge. So I think it's I think it's completely fascinating to see like what these players do, how they attack the golf course. I think there will be a lot of different ways to do it. I think once guys get out there and look at the rough and try to figure out like, all right, I can hit it out of the rough in certain spots, I can't in others. USGA loves having sort of differentiated rough where my ball might land right next to yours and mine is sitting up nicely and I got a little flyer lie into the green and it's going to be nice, and yours is 2 feet away and it's sitting so far down that you've got to take a wedge just to hack it back out to the fairway. And that's sort of what happens. Luck is a big part of this game, and luck's going to be a big part of who's on the U.S. Open leaderboard this week.
Yeah, and one thing to clarify, too, is that we're not going to have graduated rough here, right? I mean, we could have trampled down rough because of the crowd, but my understanding is that, like, there's no first, second, third cut. It's just 5-inch rough. So if you're in the rough, you're in the rough. Now, the lie obviously is going to be different with each of these potentially, but that's something to consider. If you miss the fairway, like you're going to be in a little bit of trouble with having to deal with the rough. Any final thoughts before we transition back to some stuff that's going on today?
Just can't wait to get out there. It's like I said, one of my favorite golf courses. I do think, I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be a top tier player who wins the golf tournament. We're going to see some different names that are up there, but you've just got to be on all facets of your game. This is one of those where the prototypical U.S. Open, which is you want to be long off the tee because, long is better than short, but you've got to keep it the short stuff too. And ball striking, like you said, Sia, ball striking is so important, but you're going to miss a lot of these greens. The ball's just going to fall off these greens, and you got to be really good with a wedge in your hands. And on greens running 14 and a half, 15 on the stimp, you've got to make some putts. That's golf. So it's going to be the best golfers, the guys who do everything really well, who are going to be on top of this leaderboard. And that just, I think that cuts off a lot of the value because it is the guys who are the best players in the world. I mean, this is kind of how it's supposed to happen. USGA, Sandy Tatum, 1974 at Wingfoot said, we're not looking to embarrass the best players in the world. We're looking to identify them. That's sort of been the USGA's mantra for the last 50 years. And that's what we're going to see this week is not that they're trying to embarrass these guys. They're trying to identify the best players. Oakmont has a great way of identifying who the best players are. And I would expect that those best players are going to be the ones on top of the leaderboard. And I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of surprises.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to be respectful to the field here. And I'll leave you with this question, Jason. How many players can actually over 4 rounds win this tournament? I mean, can we reduce it to like 5 to 7 players, or am I just overstating it just to like make a headline for the show? Like, I think that's what everybody's saying, by the way. I don't think I'm different in saying what I just said. But I mean, is there room maybe for like a Straka or a Connors, or maybe not Connors, maybe like a Morikawa, who frankly, I don't think people are considering, a Ludwig, who people think like, yeah, maybe has a chance, but aren't really considering? Is the pool 10 to 15 instead of 5 to 7?
I will say this much. I don't know what the odds could be. You talked about the without market, and I'll even take Rory out of this. My favorite 4 would be Scheffler, Bryson, Rahm, and Schauffele. And so if I could take those 4 guys and get an even money bet against you having the other 152, I think I'd do it. So that's my way of answering that question is I'll give you all the Sepp Strakas and the Colin Morikawas and the Keegan Bradleys and the Patrick Cantleys and the Tommy Fleetwoods and all those guys like that. And I'll take my chances with the big boys up top.
You know what's funny about that, Jason, is that bet's going to be offered, because I'm pretty sure it was offered at the PGA Championship, where they basically gave you like four guys, and they were like these guys versus the field, and it was close. I think it was close to even money. I even think the 4 might have been a slight favorite. I can't remember because I didn't make the bet. But we're going to have that market. We're going to have a lot of markets, which means we're going to have a lot to discuss over the week from a golf standpoint, but certainly from a betting and a DFS standpoint as well. For now, that's just going to conclude our U.S. Open preview. Obviously, way more to come. Make sure you have your notifications turned on, specifically this week with SportsLine, because not only do we have all the golf stuff, but there's some special shows coming up with other sports, including an MLB live betting show on Wednesday that you're definitely going to want to tune into. But again, that'll wrap it up for now for the U.S. Open.